Yes, finally it is upon us. Batman has been on the streets for 2 years, and in that time he has built up a relationship with James Gordon, Detective James Gordon. He's gone some way to kind of making a name for himself, making a reputation. Criminals fear him. When they see the bat symbol in the sky, they get off the streets. Almost in response to that, we get the surfacing of this new villain, the Riddler, who is leaving clues for Batman, trying to uncover the corruption of Gotham City and all the levels within which it reaches, using Batman as an instrument, essentially to uncover all this grime, this dirt, this cesspool which is Gotham City. Now, there's a lot been said about the trailers for this film. You know, if you've not seen this film yet, but you've seen all the trailers, everything that I think has been said about the trailers with regards to tone, with regards to what to expect from a detective story level, the comparisons to David Fincher, particularly his films Zodiac and Seven, all that stuff that's been said is true. It's spot on. You know, they are perfect comparisons to make, so I'm not going to go any further with that. If you've heard all that stuff, or you felt all that stuff just from watching the trailers, it's true. They are great comparisons and in the best possible way. So this is a film about vengeance. You know, we've seen the taglines, "I am vengeance." We've seen that the line in the trailers. That's what Batman is all about. It's how he came into being. You know, to avenge the death of his parents. He became this creature of the night. He is all about vengeance. The question is, does that solve anything? Does vengeance solve anything? And if not, where do you go from there? When you've built your whole persona on that very ideal, what else is there once you pick that apart? That's what this film is about. That's what the hero's journey is in this movie. And I think it raises some really interesting questions about the notion of justice through vengeance, and judgment. You know, I think when you come to a place of judgment that is built on vengeance, you can never have true justice. And likewise, if you go down the road of vengeance as a result of your judgment, again, true justice is not going to be found. It has to be about more than that. The pursuit of justice has to be about more than vengeance. And that's what Batman has to learn during this movie. Robert Pattinson as Batman, Bruce Wayne in this film is great. As a big Batman fan of comic books, this is Batman from the comic books. He's dark, he's brooding, he's a man of very few words. Moments when you think he's being caring actually turn out to be moments where he's just investigating something. There's a brilliant moment between him and Selina Kyle in which she thinks he's about to have this tender moment, but he's actually just checking on some surveillance technology. It's a really great moment that is just, that's Batman. That's Batman in the comics. He's cold, he's calculated, he's focused on one thing, and that is his mission. The suit is absolutely amazing. It's very tactical. You know, this body armor. It's very functional. In much the same way that Christian Bale's suit was very practical and functional, and there was a reason for various parts to be there. This perhaps even more so, dare I say. The villains in this are brilliantly handled, it's got to be said. Riddler in particular, once Paul Dano really gets to reveal himself, to get a bit of screen time, the guy is nuts, absolutely nuts. Again, like something out of a David Fincher movie. Think Kevin Spacey in Seven. That's the Riddler here. I love what he's done with this character. If you've read the prequel novel, which I've got sat right here on my shelf, I kind of had an idea of what to expect going into this film. It's not the best written novel from a prose standpoint, but it is still really solid, and it really kind of brought me into this world before we even got a chance to be in this world. There's a whole load of stuff in there about how Bruce kind of builds his car. The main chunk of the novel is about how he builds his car and keeps tinkering with it. And coming into this film, having that background knowledge, while I wouldn't say you need it, it really did help flesh a lot of the stuff out. There's, where this film goes with regards to the reveal about who the Riddler is, what his past is. That's all there in the prequel novel. It's kind of a surprise, I guess, a reveal with regards to his past. If you haven't read that novel, but having read it doesn't hinder that. It's not like, oh no, it spoiled something. No, what it does is it enriches where they go with him in this film, and to some degree you kind of feel sympathy for him, but obviously due to his complete psychosis and the way in which he deals with things, it's clearly not something you can identify with or condone or anything. And he almost becomes the flip side of the same coin to which Batman is on. That again, that idea of vengeance creeping in, but channeled in completely the wrong way. Selina Kyle as well, following that line of vengeance, sticking to that theme of vengeance that runs throughout the film. Her story is all tied up with this character of Carmine Falcone, who was previously played by Tom Wilkinson in Batman Begins. Here, John Turturro plays him, and I've got to say, I much prefer this version of Carmine Falcone. This, everyone knows how much I love the Dark Knight trilogy. There are a lot of things in this film that I don't think are quite as good as the Dark Knight trilogy for me personally. But if there's one thing that really stands out to me that is far and away better than the Dark Knight trilogy version, it's Carmine Falcone. This is the guy I know from the comic books, particularly Year One and like The Long Halloween. Absolutely is that guy, and his relationship to Selina Kyle, Catwoman, is very much derived from those two books, what they do here. There's even a nice little nod to Batman Year One in a confrontation between the two characters at one point, which I just thought was, for fanboys like me, really awesome. Colin Farrell, again, another scene stealer as a Penguin. I love Colin Farrell, to be honest. He's got to be one of my favourite actors now at this point. Every time I see him, he just, in this film, he's gone. There's no, I don't see Colin Farrell there. If you showed me this film without ever telling me that was Colin Farrell, I would have no clue. I would say, who's this new guy? Who did they get? He's really good. He steals the show. Yeah, he's under a load of makeup, but there's no hint of Farrell there. It's a really great iteration of the Penguin. Again, it is absolutely 100% the Penguin that we get from the comic books. And also, I think the TV series Gotham has been much of an inspiration for a lot of what's happened in recent years, either in the comics or in movies and various things. I don't think that TV show gets enough credit for just what it's done for the characters and how it's changed them. Definitely a lot of the Oswald Cobblepot from the Gotham TV show I see in this version as well. That ladder climber, that kind of pathetic underling of a much bigger mob boss who is really trying to climb up the ladder and get to the top. That's, right from Gotham. You see that here. Somebody I would have liked to have seen more of in this movie is Alfred. So Andy Serkis is here as Alfred. Now he does play a key role in the film. He's quite instrumental in several ways. But then one scene in particular, which is quite an emotional scene between him and Bruce. That, as I say, it was emotional. I sat there, and as I was watching it, I could feel myself welling up. And just because of that, I just felt like, you know what, it would have been nice to have more of this guy. Like, we get enough to warrant that emotion. Don't get me wrong. We get enough there that emotional moment feels earned. But I think because of that, I want more of this guy. I'd like to see more of the interplay between him and Bruce. I would also have liked to have seen a bit, well, we don't really get any, just like Bruce's interactions with Wayne Enterprises kind of people, the people who are running Wayne Enterprise on his behalf, and that we get mentions of it, and how Bruce is basically dodging all the meetings, which is why we don't get to see them, to be honest. But one of the things I liked about the Dark Knight trilogy is those scenes where we see Bruce in the boardroom meetings, and he's asleep while the boardroom is kind of getting on with things. Obviously, this is early days. This is about Bruce kind of learning to be Batman. He's not there yet. He's got a lot of the traits that we know from the comic books, but he's not quite there. He's not quite learnt to balance the public persona of Bruce Wayne along with his the true Bruce Wayne, which is essentially Batman. The real Bruce Wayne is Batman. They are one and the same. But he has this public persona, Bruce Wayne, that here he doesn't really put out because it's still early days. He's still so focused on his mission, on the idea of vengeance, that he's neglected that whole side of things, which I'm sure, when we get sequels, which we inevitably will, that side will start to emerge. So I'm looking forward to that. Michael Giacchino's score for this is pretty good for the most part. I particularly like his Batman theme. It's one of them, it's just a few notes, but man, does it stick in your head. You come out of this film just like humming those few notes, like like it's just, it's like a battle cry. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the best score overall. If you listen to the score outside of the movie, just on its own, there's a lot of incidental stuff in there. There's a lot of skippers, a lot of tracks you would skip. But certainly the themes that are specific to characters, like Selena Kyle's theme, Batman's theme, which does recur quite a lot. There's a lot of repetition there with that they stick in the mind. So as a score, on its own terms, away from the film, maybe not quite as likable as, say, the score that Danny Elfman did for the 89 Batman, or indeed Hans Zimmer's score, or indeed Junkie XL's score for Batman v Superman. But certainly the main theme, the character theme, that's the one that sticks. Another thing I would have liked more of, again, just because of how great it was, which is a good sign. When you've got things in a film that you like so much that you wanted more of it, that's a good thing. It's a heck of a lot better than having a lot of stuff where you're just like, my goodness, I wish we'd have less of this. It's the Batmobile. The Batmobile in this is just awesome. So it really only gets one scene. It's a big scene. It's a real great action sequence. Again, seen a lot of it in the trailers, but man, it's just badass. And again, the prequel novel, a lot of that was about the building of that car, the perfecting of that car, just how much of Bruce's persona is tied up with the building of that car and his mission and the focus that it required, and the tinkering. Reading about that from his character's perspective inside his head, and then coming into this film and seeing it in action, it was just, it was a sight to behold. I loved it. It was brilliantly filmed. A lot of close-ups, the camera kind of really comes in close to get the emotion of the heightened intensity of what characters are feeling as as cars are slamming into them and trucks are overturning behind them and stuff. Particularly Penguin's reactions to that, and Batman's as well. When we go up close in his car as he's hitting the throttle, and he lets out these screams because he's a pent up dude. He's a really pent up dude, which is as he should be, and the car is kind of an extension of his persona. So when he's tearing through trucks and the side of highways, it's just like, this guy's got a lot of anger issues, and he's using his car right now to take them out on the city. Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon again is perfect. I love Gary Oldman as Jim Gordon. I would say probably my favourite Jim Gordon, but after a few more watches of this, that could very well change. It's got to be said. That's Jim Gordon. I love him. Great character. I love Wright's portrayal of the character, and he could very well be my favourite Jim Gordon. Oldman had 3 films. This guy's only had 1 so far, but the impact he has in this film, but again, he's instrumental in the plot. He's not passive. He's very active. It's him and Batman working this case together. If you look at previous movies, even to some extent the Dark Knight trilogy, even Gordon kind of gets sidelined a bit. Nowhere near the lengths of Pat Hingle back in the 80s and 90s movies. And if you look at them, Commissioner Gordon was like, I don't know what he did, to be honest. He just showed up at crime scenes once Batman had cleared up, and that was it. But no, here, this is literally, Batman cannot function without Gordon's help, and Gordon cannot function without Batman's help. The two of them need each other, and it's that partnership that, without Gordon getting Batman into the crime scenes when there's loads of cops around and stuff, without him being that guy who opens those doors, Batman would really have a much bigger battle on his hands. The police would be literally crawling all over him. So the two of them need each other. They work well together. In some respects, it's kind of like a buddy cop movie. Not like full on Shane Black or anything, but there are moments across the course of the film as the two men are bonding, as the two men are growing to understand each other and respect each other, that you just watch it and you think, yes, that's Gordon and Batman. That's how their relationship should be. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant team. There's one particular moment that I just really loved. Obviously, we've got Batman here having his no-kill rule, which I'm always a fan of. I'm not one of those guys who's like, Zack Snyder made a Batman who killed. Well, so did Tim Burton, and I love those films. So it's neither here nor there to me. It's a different interpretation. That is the way it is. It worked for Snyder. It worked for Burton. But I have to say, I do prefer my Batman to have the no-kill rule. It's what separates the character from the likes of Punisher or someone like that. It's what puts him on a higher moral footing in that respect and makes his mission more holy to some degree. There's a moment when Gordon kind of, he's got his gun out and Batman's like kind of telling him, look, no guns, and Gordon just gives this little aside that's like, that's your thing, not mine. I'm a cop, I carry a gun, screw you. But it was just a nice little aside which I found quite humorous. But again, it's all about that bonding process between Batman and Gordon. So when you throw something in there like that is funny, it is also character building. It's also relationship building. So and there's a lot of that between these two guys. So as you can tell, I absolutely friggin' loved this film. It was great. It was when you look at the trailers, you know, if you like the trailers, if you're one of those people, you look to them trailers and you're like, yes, that's the best trailer like ever. That's what I want to see. All your expectations that you have watching those trailers, this is one of those very rare occasions where the movie lives up to those expectations. If you love those trailers, I have no doubt you're gonna love this movie. If you don't, then there's just something wrong with you, I guess. I loved it. It's much harder rated. There's a lot more kind of swearing in this, a lot more violence. It's dark. It's gritty. It much more so even than the Nolan movies. But to some respects better for it, because hey, it's Gotham. That's the world that Batman lives in. And that does actually remind me of something that was said in the screening I was in, to be honest. As I was watching the movie, there's a scene in it where there's a video played on a news broadcast. You know, the Riddler makes these videos, he sends them to news outlets, and they show them on the news. And there's something that happens in one of these, and there's the two guys sat next to me, and one of them leant to his friend and said, "They'd never show that, just wouldn't happen." And my first instinct was like, yeah, you're right. And then actually, being the Batman fan I am, and knowing the comic books, knowing the world of Gotham, my brain suddenly said, actually, no, this is Gotham. This isn't New York. This isn't Chicago. This is Gotham. This is a city that is so corrupt, as Ra's al Ghul says in Batman Begins, that criminality has infected every level of its infrastructure. You know, and that's what this is. It's the most corrupt city on Earth. If you're going to portray Gotham City in a movie, particularly an R-rated movie or a 15-rated movie if you're in the UK, then it has to be the most corrupt city on Earth, the darkest, dirtiest, crime-ridden, crime-infested city on Earth. And in that city, I feel like, yeah, you know what? The news outlets probably would play that video on there. I loved it. The tone, everything about it, the character, they get all the characters right for the most part. 5 out of 5. Was there any doubt, really? If you know my channel, if you know me, was there any doubt? 5 out of 5. I couldn't have hoped for more, to be honest. I got everything I wanted. I got everything I expected and more so. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. 5 out of 5. Cannot wait to see it again. But what about you? Have you seen The Batman? If so, let me know what you thought about it down below. And now that it's out, where would you rank it amongst the other Batman movies? I'm not sure I can go there yet. I think I need to see it a couple more times, but it's high. It's definitely high. Yeah. Leave your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the film. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.